And we're live. Okay. Good morning, Evanjali. I'm going to start presenting now. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. Good morning, Evanjali. Okay. So, last class, we were working with a couple of these exercises, and exercises 13 and 14 were adapted for the discussion board. They're not exactly the same in the discussion as they are in the book. I just wanted to change some things up. But yeah, we worked with unspecified time, and we did a couple of these exercises. Over here, 21. Okay. So let's read these two sentences. Taking into consideration this question here, who is more likely to say the last sentence, Pamela or Jenna? So Pamela, I've traveled around the world several times. Jenna, I've traveled around the world once. And then blank says, I'm looking forward to my next trip. Seeing as we have two options, which do you think is the one who is speaking in that last sentence? Yeah, anybody? You can just turn on your mic or write it in the chat.
Pamela.
Okay. Does anybody disagree, or is that the consensus?
I think Jenna.
Okay, so we have both. We have Pamela and Jenna. Well, this might apply for both of them because they both have traveled at least once. I'm looking forward to my next trip. I think there's two different ways to look at it, but they both lead to the same answer. If we're going in a sequential manner, first Pamela, then Jenna, then logic would say Pamela would speak again. That's one. And the other one is the answers, basically the response. Jenna's response, it could match up with the next sentence that says, I'm looking forward to my next trip. But Pamela's answer really matches up better with that one. Because who is more likely to travel again? Well, the person that's traveled many times already. So I think Pamela makes the most sense, as I said, because it would be her turn to speak again, and she's also the more seasoned traveler. Okay, so let's continue with this simple past versus present perfect over here. Let me put it into read mode. Where's the assignment on? Oh, that's barely any difference. Okay. So let's take a look at the differences between the simple past and the present perfect. So let's take a look at sentence A over here. It says, I finished my work 2 hours ago. We have a main verb that ends with ed, which of course tells us this is past tense. And we have a very specific time frame here. We have 2 hours ago. In sentence A, I finished my work at a specific time in the past. Let's take a look at sentence B. I have already finished my work. We have, of course, the helping verb have, and we also have the finished. We have the main verb ending with ed. We do not have specific time here. In sentence B, I finished my work at an unspecified time in the past, or sometime before now. If we take a look at the differences between these two sentences, of course, we keep using the same verb ending in ed. And of course, in the present perfect, we have this auxiliary. One of the bigger differences, I would say, is this specific time, which is not present in both sentences. It's just in this one. Let's keep going to see if you can see the pattern. Simple past. I was in Europe last year. I was in Europe 3 years ago. I was in Europe in 2006. I was in Europe in 2008 and 2010. I was in Europe when I was 10 years old. This simple past sentence, well, the many variants of that sentence express an activity that occurred at a specific time or specific times in the past, as in sentences A and C. So here we have two different examples of the simple past occurring in a very specific moment. Let's take a look at the present perfect sentence. I have been in Europe many times. I have been in Europe several times. I have been in Europe a couple of times. I have been in Europe once. Or I have just been in Europe with no mention of time. The present perfect expresses an activity that occurred at an unspecified time or multiple times in the past, as in B and D. So, as in sentence B, we're referring to a work that was completed at some point in the past. And in sentence D, we're referring to an imaginary trip to Europe that also occurred at some point in the past. And it doesn't matter when it occurred. Well, it's not specified when it occurred. It doesn't matter how many times it happened. Let's see if we can continue with this next one. Simple past, sentence E, Anne was in Miami for 2 weeks. We have the simple past verb was, which is also be verb, and we have for 2 weeks. So we have another specific time here. In sentence E, in sentences where for is used in a time expression, the simple past expresses an activity that began and ended in the past. So, as you can see, Anne was in Miami for 2 weeks. It doesn't say when she came back. It doesn't say that she's still in Miami. It just says that she was and she's no longer there. So this is completely in the past. The present perfect sentence here. Bob has been in Miami for 2 weeks or since May 1st. Okay. In F, sentences with for or since, the present perfect expresses an activity that began in the past and continues in the present. So, as I've mentioned before, the perfect is similar somewhat to the progressive because it's expressing activities that began at some point in the past, but they're still going on in the present. So Bob has been in Miami for 2 weeks or since May 1st. Over here, just has been in. Okay, I learned something new. Okay, so has been in implies that he's still in. That's why we can say that it continues to the present. Okay, so let's keep seeing the simple past as specific, as in 2 hours ago, as in 2006, for 2 weeks. And let's keep seeing the present perfect as unspecific. Okay. So simple past, specific, present perfect, not specific. Okay? Let's keep that in mind for the rest of these exercises. Okay. So answer each question and discuss the meanings of the verb tenses. So all of these verbs talk about past time, but the verb in A is different from the other 3 verbs. What is the difference? Let's take a look at the verbs here. I have had several bicycles in my lifetime. I had a red bicycle when I was in elementary school. I had a blue bicycle when I was a teenager. I had a green bicycle when I lived and worked in Hong Kong. Okay? sentences B, C, and D only use had as their main verb, and sentence A uses have had. So we're still using had, but what is the difference between those those four sentences? What is the difference of using have had versus just using had? Does that imply something different? And once again, you can just turn on your microphones or you can write in the chat. We're seeing these verbs that are oh my god, that are highlighted here. I'm switching between these three that are the same and this one that's different. What is different from these? What is the difference?
That in the B, C, and D are talking had about the past, and have had are talking about a long time of his life.
Okay. So I guess another way to say, another way to phrase your answer would be that sentences B, C, and D, they all occurred in the past. And sentence A, it is written in a way that it implies that it's still going on today. So there is something that connects
Yeah.
with present.
Yeah, that.
All right, good. Thank you for the answer. And of course, have had, we know that it's basically the past perfect, because we're using we're using have, and we're using the main verb in the past tense. Okay, so basically, yeah, what we're saying here is that these are completely in the past, and this is in the past perfect. Another way to see this is the specific time. So when I was in elementary school, when I was a teenager, when I lived and worked in Hong Kong. All of these are very specific points in time, versus this one that kind of encompasses this person's entire life. So it is in their entire lifetime, they have had several bicycles. They may have a different one now. They will probably have another one in the future. So sentence A would be in the perfect tense, and sentences B, C, and D would be in the simple past. What are the differences in the ideas the verb tenses express? The differences in the ideas that each verb expresses. I had a wonderful bicycle last year, and I have had many wonderful bicycles.
The difference are the have is conjugated el la por el apostrophe. And
Okay.
is also is present, and the e is past. No?
Okay, well, that's one way to see it. Yes, this is la palabra no es conjugated. This is I taught this last semester. This is a contraction. Okay, so this is a contraction of I and have. Let me get that match. So I have. Okay, but contractions, they don't really change the tense. This is still this is not exactly the focus of the sentence. Let's but this is in the simple past, sentence E, and I have had many wonderful bicycles. You're getting close, though. Let's rephrase the question, sorry. The differences in the ideas the verb tenses express. So what are we saying about the bicycles just by noticing how the sentences are written? I had a wonderful bicycle last year. Yo tuve una bicicleta buena el año pasado. I have had many wonderful bicycles. He tenido muchas bicicletas buenas. So no quiero decir nada más. Okay, so keep thinking about that. I've had a wonderful bicycle and I've had many wonderful bicycles. Remember that in the simple past, we were using specific time versus in the present perfect, we are using non-specific. So we can apply the same logic to this idea of these two different bicycles. Basically, sentence E can imply that I've only had one good bicycle, and that was last year. And then sentence F could imply that I've had many, many different bicycles, and they were all good. Of course, we're still talking about specifics like last year, or in sentence F, which is basically the same as we saw up here with in my lifetime. So we're still using specific versus non-specific time here. And just like I didn't see who spoke earlier, but she said that this is the simple past and this would be the perfect, and that is correct. Let's keep thinking about that specific time or non-specific time. And this is the same question. What are the differences in the ideas the verb tenses express? That question is a little bit weird. Anyways, so Anne had a red bike for 2 years. Sue has had a red bike for 2 years. What is the difference implied with had versus has had? Do these sentences mean the same thing? Is there a slight difference?
Had tiene y had has es ha tenido.
Very close. El had es tuvo. So, es tener, pero en el pasado. Y el has had es correcto, yes. That would be ha tenido. So, how can we analyze the meaning of those sentences by, how can we understand those sentences by analyzing those verbs? Let's think about her ownership of that bicycle. Does she still have that bike in both sentences? Remember the difference between the simple past and the perfect tense? One implies something that occurred and ended in the past, and there's another one that says something occurred in the past and is still happening now. We can apply that same logic to these two sentences. We can say in sentence G, Anne had a red bike for 2 years. That implies that she no longer has that bike. And sentence H, Sue has had a red bike for 2 years. This implies that she still has it today. Okay? And once again, simple past versus the present perfect tense. All right, and maybe this question will make things a little bit more clear. Who is still alive and who is dead? In his lifetime, Uncle Alex had several red bicycles. In his lifetime, Grandpa has had several red bicycles. There is one sentence that implies that this person is no longer alive. It may not be who you think it is.
The first one is dead and the second one's still alive.
Exactly. I'll say goodbye to sushi. So, exactly right. We have this verb had, which implies something that occurred in the past and ended in the past, and thus implies that Uncle Alex is dead. And this one, Grandpa has had several red bicycles, so it implies that he is still alive and he still owns bikes. All right, good job. Let's continue. Okay, so let's look at each verb in italics. Okay, italics is this. Is it simple past or present perfect? Check the box that describes whether the verb expresses something that happened at a specified or unspecified time in the past. Let's take a moment to unwrap that and see if we can understand it better. So we're going to see these sentences, and if it is non-specific, we put a check mark here. If it is specific time, we put a check mark here. So Miss Parker has been in Tokyo many times. We have has been, which, if you remember the formula, it implies this is the perfect tense. But of course, it just says that she's been there many times. It doesn't specify like one time. It doesn't specify when that occurred. So for that reason, we say it is unspecified. It doesn't tell you when it happened or how many times it happened. And we know it's present perfect. Miss Parker was in Tokyo last week. Now this is specific. Many times versus last week. Last week is very specific, which is why we check this box here. And of course, the simple verb here is was, so this is simple past. Okay? There is another way to identify the perfect tense, and this may not be 100% accurate because, you know, sentences are different. But if you just see at the number of verbs, typically the simple has one verb versus the perfect, it usually has two, sometimes three. So take a couple of minutes. This is page 95 of chapter 4. This is exercise 23. Just take a couple of minutes and check these boxes, okay? So if it specifies time, you click here. If it's not specific, you click here. You just do that on your own notebooks or whatever, and I'll be right here. I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay. Let's take a look at these answers. Does anybody have anybody check something for number 3?
Unspecified.
Okay, I'm gonna put the check mark or the X. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, so I've met Kay's husband. He's a nice guy. You said unspecified?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And why is it big? Okay, there you go. All right, so number 4, I met Kay's husband at a party last week.
Specified.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Mr. White was in the hospital 3 times last month.
Specified.
Okay. Okay, number 6, Mr. White has been in the hospital many times.
Unspecified.
Mm-hmm. And okay, I like to travel. I've been to more than 30 foreign countries.
Unspecified.
Mm-hmm. I was in Morocco in 2008.
Specified.
Specified.
All right, Vanita has never been to Morocco.
Unspecified.
Mm-hmm. And Vanita wasn't in Morocco when I was there in 2008.
Specified.
Exactly, because it says in 2008. I chose too much, but that's okay. So we have non-specific, specific, specific, non-specific twice. Okay. So that was pretty easy, I think. Did you guys? How did you like? How did you identify the times? Did you se dejaron llevar del verbo únicamente, or did you also use the context of, for example, last month or 2008?
Context.
Okay, that's good. All right, fantastic. Let's continue. Okay, so let's complete these sentences. Have you ever been to Singapore? Yes, I have, which is another, of course, form of the be verb. I have been. Wait, no, that's not right. Anyways, I have been to Singapore several times. In fact, I was in Singapore last year. Well, have is fine, but this shouldn't say be. This should say has. Anyways, no, kidding. Are you going to finish your work before you go to bed? I finish already, or I have already finished. I finished my work 2 hours ago. Okay, so there are a couple. There's 8, so that means there's 5 for you to complete. You guys can take another 4 or 5 minutes to complete these. Yeah, let's do that. Have you ever eaten at the Sunset Beach Cafe? Yes, I blank. I eat there many times. In fact, my wife and I eat lunch there yesterday. So take a couple of minutes. I'll check in with you very soon. Does anybody need me to scroll down? Do you have the chapters available? I mean, you have it available through Canvas anyway, so you don't need to rely on me. Does anybody have the answer for number 3? Have you ever eaten at Sunset Beach Cafe?
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm.
I have eaten there many times. In fact, my wife and I ate lunch there yesterday.
Fantastic. Let me. Yes, I have. I have eaten there many times. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, guys, take a look at that, and then we can continue to number 4. Do you and Erica want to go to the Galaxy Theater with us tonight? All right, so who can answer number 4?
We have already seen it.
Already seen it. We see last week.
We've seen it last week.
Remember, if there's no have, then we don't go to the past participle. We just go to the simple past form, which would be saw. Okay, so we have already seen it and we saw it last week. That's good. When are you going to write your report for Mr. Berg? I write already.
I have already wrote it.
Have already
Written it.
There you go. I've already written it. Remember that wrote would be the simple past form, and we're using the past participle. But very close, very close. I blank it 2 days ago and gave it to him. Repíteme ese verbo que dijiste ahorita. It was
Wrote.
There you go. When it's by itself, we use wrote. When we use have, entonces usamos written. Like
Okay, perfect.
it ends with en. Fantastic. Antonio, have ever a job? I'm giving you the first letter of each one. I'm going to give you this one. So we're missing this H, this E, and also this H.
Has Antonio ever had a job?
There you go. Has Antonio ever had a job? Perfect. Yes, he.
Has.
There you go. He blank, lots of part-time jobs.
Has had.
There you go. And last summer he.
Had.
There you go. Okay, so has Antonio ever had a job? Yes, he has. He has had lots of part-time jobs. Last summer, he had a job at his uncle's auto shop. Okay, and this one, nos dejamos llevar del contexto of this specific time to tell us whether or not this was simple or perfect. Sorry. Number 7, this is a good book. Would you like to read it when I'm finished? Thanks, but I already read already.
I already read it.
So already read. We're missing one thing.
Oh, have.
There you go. Have already read it. And how do we put this word read into its simple past form? How do we write it? Do we write it like this or do we write it like this?
Just how we normally write it, like read.
There you go. So I read it a couple of months ago. So in the simple, it's read. In the past, it's read. Pero se escribe igual. What African countries you visit? Question mark.
Have you visited?
And there you go. I
Visited?
Kenya and Ethiopia. I visit.
And visited again?
And finally,
I was.
there you go. Was. Now, are we satisfied with all of these? I think maybe this one here. I visited Kenya and Ethiopia. It might be missing something.
I have visited.
Let me reread this now. I have visited Kenya and Ethiopia. I visited Kenya. Yes, I think this makes more sense now because since this doesn't say specific time, it should be the perfect tense, which is what we have now. Okay, so all these answers are there. You should have been following the camino. So, you can just ask me and I'll show it to you again later. We're going to skip 25 because, we're going to skip 26 because whatever. And number 27, if we have time, we can just, you know what? No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save this one for Wednesday, entonces. Let me write down. So my workspace is a mess. Continue on exercise 27 on Wednesday. Okay, guys. Vamos a dejarlo ahí. It's a couple of minutes earlier, but that's fine. Let me just go back to the thing here. Okay, ignore that. Okay. Okay. Let me stop presenting. And actually, let me stop recording as well.